At 6:15 a.m., Officer Jackson finds Marcus Webb standing at his cell door, waiting for morning count. Nothing unusual about that, except Marcus looks like he hasn't slept. Eyes red, face drawn, hands gripping the bars too tight. "You okay, Webb?" Jackson asks. Marcus doesn't answer immediately, just stares through Jackson, past him, at nothing. Then, "I need to file a transfer request." Jackson has been a guard for 9 years. Heard a lot of transfer requests. Usually it's about safety. Someone made threats. Someone's got a target. Someone saw something they shouldn't have seen. Standard prison politics. But Marcus Webb isn't standard. Been in this facility for 3 years. 0 incidents. 0 complaints. Model inmate. Reads. Keeps his head down. Does his time quietly. Guards like Marcus because he's easy. No drama. No problems. "What's the issue?" Jackson asks. Marcus looks at him. Really looks. "I need a different cell." "Why?" "Your new cellmate give you trouble." "No." "He threaten you?" "No." "He do something?" Marcus is quiet for a long time. Then, "He didn't do anything." That's the problem. Jackson doesn't understand. "Webb, I need a reason." "Can't process a transfer without." He breathes wrong, Marcus says. Voice flat. Exhausted. Like he's been thinking about how to say this all night, and that's the best he can come up with. Breathes wrong. "Yeah, that's not a reason. It's my reason." Jackson looks past Marcus. Into the cell. At the bottom bunk. At Mike Tyson sleeping. Or appearing to sleep. Lying on his back. Hands folded on his chest. Perfectly still except for the rise and fall of his chest. Slow. Controlled. Even breathing looks normal. Looks fine. Looks like someone's sleeping. Jackson looks back at Marcus. At this man who survived 3 facilities. Who's never complained about anything. Who looks genuinely disturbed. "I'll file the paperwork," Jackson says. "But you need to give me something more than breathing." Marcus thinks. Then, "I'd rather cell with a killer than whatever he is." 12 hours earlier, Marcus Webb watched his new cellmate arrive. The guards brought him in around 6 p.m. Intake paperwork. Standard procedure. Marcus was lying on his bunk reading when the cell door opened. He looked up. Saw a man. Not particularly tall. Maybe 5 feet 10 inches. Solid build, but not enormous. Prison blues. Number on the chest. Just another inmate. The guard stepped back. "Webb, this is your new cellmate. Make him feel welcome." Marcus sat up. Extended his hand. "Marcus." The new guy looked at him. Brief assessment. Then shook his hand. Firm grip. Controlled. "Mike." That was it. The guard left. Door locked. And Marcus had a new cellmate. Mike spent the first hour organizing his space. Made his bed with hospital corners. Military precision. Folded his extra clothes. Arranged his few possessions on the small shelf. Toothbrush. Soap. A few books. Everything in its place. Everything precise. Marcus watched from his bunk. Trying to figure this guy out. Everyone in prison has a type. Loud. Quiet. Aggressive. Submissive. You learn to categorize fast. Survival skill, but Mike was hard to place. Moved with certainty. Purpose. No wasted motion. No nervousness. No aggression. Just calm. Complete calm. Like being in a prison cell with a stranger was the most natural thing in the world. "What you in for?" Marcus asked. Standard question. Icebreaker. Mike looked at him. "Does it matter?" "Just making conversation." "I'd rather not." "Fair enough. Some guys don't talk about their cases." Marcus respected that. He went back to his book. Let Mike finish settling in. Dinner came at 7. They ate in the cell. Both quiet. After, Mike sat on the edge of his bunk. Just sat there, staring at nothing. For 20 minutes. Didn't read. Didn't pace. Didn't talk. Just Saturday Marcus had seen guys meditate. Seen guys pray. Seen guys zone out to deal with the reality of being locked up. But this was different. This wasn't escape. This was focus. Like Mike was going somewhere internal. Somewhere deep. And staying there to 11 p.m. Lights out. Marcus climbed to his top bunk. Mike lay down on the bottom. No goodnight. No conversation. Just silence. Then the breathing started at 8 first. Marcus didn't notice. Everyone breathes. Background noise. But after 10 minutes, he became aware of it. The rhythm. Too perfect. Too controlled. In through the nose. Hold. out through the mouth. 4 counts each. Like a pattern. Like something practiced, Marcus tried to ignore it. Focused on sleep. But the breathing kept pulling his attention. That precision. That control. After 30 minutes, he couldn't unhear it, but he lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening. That breathing. Constant. Unchanging. Like a clock ticking. Like something mechanical rather than human that in our past. The breathing never varied. Never became irregular. Never showed any sign of actual sleep. Marcus had shared cells with dozens of men. Everyone's breathing changes in sleep. Gets deeper, shallower, irregular. Includes snores. Movement. The natural chaos of unconsciousness. But this breathing was perfectly controlled. Which meant Mike wasn't unconscious. Couldn't be unconscious. Because you can't control something perfectly when you're asleep. Which meant Mike was awake. Lying in the dark. Breathing with machine-like precision. For an hour, Marcus shifted on his bunk, trying to get comfortable. The frame creaked. Metal on metal. Loud in the quiet cell. The breathing stopped. Completely stopped. Marcus froze. Held his own breath. Listening 0.5 seconds of absolute silence. No sound. No movement. Nothing. Then the breathing resumed. Exact same rhythm. Like someone pressed pause and play. Like it never stopped, that Marcus's heart started beating faster. Because that reaction was impossible. You can't stop breathing mid-pattern and resume perfectly unless you're conscious. Unless you're aware. Unless you're listening to everything happening around you. Which meant Mike was lying down there. Eyes open in the dark. Aware of every sound. Every movement. Breathing with perfect control while pretending to sleep. But why? Why lie awake breathing like that? Why pretend to sleep? Marcus didn't have answers. Just questions. And growing unease. 2 hours passed. Then 3. The breathing never changed. Marcus never slept. Just lay there listening. Trying to understand. Trying to make sense of why this felt so wrong, that IT wasn't threatening. Mike hadn't done anything. Hadn't said anything. Hadn't even looked at him wrong. Just unpacked. Sat quietly. Lay down. And breathed. But that breathing. That impossible control. That awareness hidden behind closed eyes. It was wrong. Wrong in a way Marcus couldn't articulate. Wrong in a way that made his instinct scream, even though his logic couldn't explain WHYT 3 a.m. Marcus couldn't take it anymore. He sat up, looked down at the bottom bunk. Could barely see in the darkness. Just the shape of a person. The rise and fall of breathing. That constant, measured breathing. You awake? Marcus whispered. The breathing didn't change. Didn't stop. Just continued. In. Hold. Out. No answer. But Marcus knew. Knew with absolute certainty that Mike heard him. Was ignoring him. Was choosing not to respond. Which was somehow worse than responding. Because it meant Mike was playing a game. Or following a pattern. Or doing something Marcus didn't understand. 4 a.m. Marcus gave up on sleep. Sat on his bunk. Back against the wall. Watching the darkness. Listening to that breathing. That relentless, perfect breathing that he started thinking about his 6 years in prison. About the men he'd shared cells with. The murderer who cried every night. The gang leader who had nightmares. The enforcer who paced until he exhausted himself. All of them dangerous. All of them violent. All of them had done terrible things. But all of them were human. Broken. Damaged. Haunted. Human. This breathing wasn't human. This control wasn't normal. This awareness wasn't something you learned. It was something you were at 5 a.m. Marcus looked at the intake papers on his shelf. He'd gotten them yesterday, but hadn't read them. Hadn't cared. Just another cellmate. Just another number. But now he needed to know. Needed to confirm what his instincts were screaming at him, that he picked up the paper. Squinted in the pre-dawn darkness. Read the name under inmate number B, 47180. Michael Gerard Tyson. Marcus's hand started shaking. Mike Tyson. The Mike Tyson. The youngest heavyweight champion in history. The man who knocked people unconscious for a living. The baddest man on the planet. That Mike Tyson was sleeping 6 feet below him. Except he wasn't sleeping. That was the problem. That was what Marcus's instincts had been screaming about all night. That breathing wasn't sleep. It was something else. Something Marcus recognized from watching nature documentaries as AKID.IT was the breathing of a predator. Resting, conserving energy, but never actually asleep, never vulnerable, always aware, always ready. That's what he'd been hearing all night. Not a man sleeping, a predator in rest mode. Controlled, conscious, waiting. Marcus put the paper down, stood up, walked to the cell door, gripped the bars, waited for morning count, waited for the first opportunity to request a transfer because he understood now. Understood why this felt different. Why every instinct he had was telling him to get out of this cell. IT wasn't about violence. Mike hadn't threatened him, hadn't even been unfriendly, just quiet, polite, even, but Marcus had shared cells with killers, with men who'd done terrible things. And those men slept like humans. Vulnerable, imperfect, human. Mike Tyson didn't sleep like a human. He rested like something that had forgotten how to be vulnerable, or never learned. Something that maintained perfect control even in darkness, even in supposed rest, even in a cell with a stranger. That's what 6 years of prison had taught Marcus. How to read danger, how to recognize threats. And every cell in his body was telling him the same thing. This man is different. This man is something you haven't encountered before. This man is not someone you can share 8 feet of concrete with for months or years. Not because he'll hurt you, but because proximity to whatever he has costs something. Takes something. Changes something. When Officer Jackson came for morning count at 6:15, Marcus was already at the door, waiting, looking like he'd aged 5 years in one night. Transfer request, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. Jackson processed the paperwork that afternoon. Asked Marcus again for a specific reason. Needed something official, something that made sense. Marcus thought about how to explain it, how to put into words what he'd experienced, how to make someone understand that breathing could be terrifying, that control could be threatening, that nothing happening could be the most disturbing thing of all. I've been in prison 6 years, Marcus finally said. Shared cells with guys who've killed people. Never bothered me. I can handle dangerous. I can handle violent. I can handle crazy. But that man? He's not dangerous. He's not violent. He's just something else. And I can't sleep in the same room as him. Whatever he is. Jackson looked at him. Webb, he's just another inmate. No, Marcus said, voice quiet but certain. He's not. And you'll understand that if you ever spend a night in a cell with him. That breathing, that control, that awareness. It's not human. Or it's human, but something else too. Something that doesn't turn off. Something that's always on. Always aware. Always in complete control. And I'd rather cell with a killer who snores and has nightmares and is broken like the rest of us than spend another night with someone who has perfect control even in sleep. The transfer went through 3 days later. Marcus moved to a different cell block. Got a new cellmate. A guy serving 15 years for armed robbery. Loud. Talkative. Snored like a chainsaw. Marcus slept better than he had in years. Other inmates asked him why he requested transfer. What did Tyson do? Did he threaten you? Did he cause problems? Marcus never explained. How could he? How do you tell people that nothing happened? That a man just breathed and you couldn't handle it? That perfect control is more disturbing than chaos. That awareness is more threatening than violence. He just said, we weren't compatible. But late at night, when Marcus lay in his new bunk listening to his new cellmate snore and fart and talk in his sleep, he thought about Mike Tyson. About that breathing. About that control. About what it means to be so conditioned, so trained, so fundamentally changed that even sleep becomes performance. Even rest becomes control. And he understood something he never understood before. Something about what it costs to be the baddest man on the planet. What it costs to be the thing that everyone fears. What it costs to be so thoroughly made into a weapon that you can't ever turn it off. Can't ever be vulnerable. Can't ever truly rest. Because rest requires letting go. Sleep requires vulnerability. Peace requires surrender. And Mike Tyson, lying in that bottom bunk with perfect breathing and closed eyes and complete awareness, couldn't do any of those things. Not because he didn't want to, but because whatever had been done to him, whatever he'd become, didn't allow it anymore. that's what Marcus heard in that breathing. Not threat, not danger. Something sadder, something heavier. The sound of someone who'd been so thoroughly trained to be a weapon that they forgot how to be human enough to actually sleep. That's what disturbed Marcus. Not fear of being hurt. Fear of understanding, of recognizing, of seeing what it costs to be what Mike Tyson is, and knowing that cost is too high for any human to pay and remain whole. Years later, someone asked Marcus about his time in prison, about the famous people he'd met. He mentioned sharing a cell with Mike Tyson for one night. What was he like, they asked, expecting stories, violence, drama. Marcus thought for a long time, then said, he breathed like he was still fighting, even in sleep, even in the dark, like his body never learned how to stop. And that's the saddest thing I ever witnessed. That's the real story of Mike Tyson's first night in prison. Not violence, not intimidation, not the story people expect. Just a man whose body never learned how to rest. And another man who couldn't sleep because he heard that truth in every breath. The sound of someone who'd been made into something that couldn't be unmade. Who'd learned control, so complete it became prison. Who'd become so thoroughly the thing everyone feared that he forgot how to be the thing everyone is. Vulnerable, imperfect, human. That's what one night taught Marcus Webb. That's what breathing in the darkness revealed. That sometimes the most terrifying thing about a dangerous man isn't what he might do to you. It's understanding what's been done to him, what he's had to become, what he can never stop being, and knowing that you're grateful you're not him. Even in a prison cell, even serving time, you're grateful your breathing is irregular. Your sleep is imperfect. Your control is incomplete, because that makes you human. And being human, even in hell, is better than being a perfect weapon that never sleeps.